There is a better way to deal with pain. The ARP Wave Clinic. Your muscles are driven and controlled by electricity. When they're injured, you develop a type of short circuit. ARP Wave locates the actual origin of that short circuit and then rapidly repairs it. The pros at ARP Wave can explain how it all works more clearly, but all you need to know is that it works to eliminate pain. Go to KFAN.com, keyword pain, for more on ARP Wave or ARPWave.com.
Welcome back to the third and final segment of Episode 5 of House of Pain, ARP Wave Clinic. ARP Wave System, the founder is Dennis Thompson. He's with me. I'm the common man, Dan Cole. Let's get back to some questions. By the way, if you want questions either answered on the show in upcoming weeks, or if you'd like to have them answered to your email or get a telephone call from someone at the ARP Wave Clinic, go to arpwave.com or call 952-431-9708. Dennis, a couple more questions from listeners from previous weeks. Here's one that says, I've been diagnosed with a rotator cuff injury and told I may need surgery if the pain becomes more intense. What could your system do for me? First of all, for other listeners, what is a rotator cuff injury?
Well, typically any shoulder problem is usually diagnosed as a rotator cuff problem. You were probably told you had a rotator cuff problem at some point. And typically that means that pain is radiating from the shoulder, could possibly go all the way down to the elbow, but mainly in the shoulder. And usually what happens is, say, common, if it was going to hurt you to pull your arm away from your side that far, you wouldn't do it because you would stop just below where it's going to hurt, okay? And so what happens is we get in this habit of moving away from the pain. And by doing that, we restrict those muscles' function and we reduce their ability to absorb force. And so sooner or later, it's going to end up in things like called adhesive capsulitis, frozen shoulders, a variety of things. I'm sure you've heard of those. What we could do is it's put them into the system. The first thing we would do in this case is we would evaluate them at no charge and determine where the actual origin of the problem is. Now, I've worked on probably 40 to 50 shoulders a month. I've never seen a shoulder problem start in the shoulder. Never. Just never. And so,
where does it start?
Generally speaking, right where you had your issue in the biceps tendon.
Okay.
Very common that it's probably one of the most misunderstood injuries out there because it exhibits pain in the shoulder. But what we don't think of is that tendon is kind of like a chain on a bicycle. And if that chain comes off the bicycle does not work. Well, consequently, if the chain comes halfway off the bicycle, it doesn't work. And what happens with the biceps tendon, it's called the long head of the biceps tendon, it sometimes shifts around in that groove a little bit. And when it does, it shuts down the electrical signals to the muscles in the front and the back of the shoulder. So now all that force is going directly to the joint, and consequently you're going to have shoulder problems. So what we would do is identify where the origin is. Once we find the origin, we'll let them know and put them through the treatment program. Usually within 10 to 15 days, they have no more problems.
So in most cases, rotator cuff injury is not a problem to repair?
No, not at all. We have a tremendous number of athletes that have it, obviously, especially volleyball players. A lot of golfers have it. We were talking about Bruce Vaughn earlier. Bruce had that. All it is a matter of re-educating those muscles to absorb force, and consequently the force goes to the muscle and now not the tendons.
Here's an email. I've been told I have a grade 3 ankle sprain. It's been 6 weeks, and I still have pain and fear of doing certain movements. What could your system do for me?
Well, unfortunately, it's very common. It's kind of irritating, too, because with a grade 3 ankle sprain, what that is the highest grade of an ankle sprain. That's the worst that can happen. Either there's tendon or ligament stretching or damaging or fraying or tearing. And typically what we do is we immobilize it, and we take the weight off of it. And when we do that, the muscles stop doing their job. So the first thing that we would do is, again, if this is the listener, and obviously it is, so we would invite them into the clinic, we would evaluate them, and identify exactly where the origin of that problem is. And I can guarantee you it's not going to be the ankle. It's not even going to be close to the ankle. What happens is that there's two places in the human body where muscle does not splint a joint. One is called the sacrum and ilium, and the other one is called the tibia fibula. And what happens is that when we sprain an ankle, we sprain that ligament. We stretch that ligament. And when that ligament is stretched, that foot becomes very unstable, and it cannot absorb force, and it can't process information coming from the ground up. And that's why it hurts. That's why when you move around, it hurts. So what we do is we stop moving around, and we take the weight and the load off of that. Well, consequently, that retards the process. What we would do is identify where the origin is. Once we identify where the origin is, within 3 days, they'd be actively weight-bearing on that ankle, and within 5 days to 7 days, they'd be playing any sport that they wanted to play or doing anything that they wanted to do without any kind of pain whatsoever.
Now, on my problem, I had what's called golfer's elbow.
Correct.
Where down in the inside part of my right elbow, I'm a right-handed golfer, I would have pain.
Correct.
And you diagnosed it, though, that it was up in the bicep area,
Yep.
correct?
Absolutely.
Since then, we've been working on it with the treatment, and it's funny how we tweak things a little bit, too. You had me do something that was really interesting where I kind of just slightly hung on a door and leaned into a little bit to stretch it a little bit. It was amazing. The next day, because I've been golfing consecutive days in a row
Sure.
for really good. And then once it got it was a bit more sore than the previous time.
Right.
He said, well, let's stretch that thing out a little bit. And so there's the system, why it works very well, you can tweak it a little bit too, right?
Oh, for sure. And you're probably 14 days into the 33-day cycle, so you're about halfway in. So we're going to make those adjustments. And normally, I mean, you're not a normal patient, but normal patients would have us communicating with them 4 times a week for that 33 days.
Right.
So we can make any adjustment based on what you tell us is going on. Because once we know how you feel, we can change it immediately.
If you'd like to hear previous shows, go to arpwave.com. We have all the shows to date on the clinic website. That's arpwave.com. Of the different patients you've seen, what's been your most challenging patient? Has there been one that stands out above the rest, that had something that was really, well, this is something we really have to work on, or something different or really severe that turned into a success story?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, probably the biggest challenges that we have are spinal cord injuries. People that come in and have absolutely no feeling from their chest on down to their toes. Those people require a tremendous amount of work. We put the ARP in their hand, and we're basically talking to them every single day. We have to make adjustments every single day. And the goal of that is that anyone who works in spinal cords will tell you that the greatest thing that you can do with a spinal cord injury patient is create contractions in the muscle. And it's very difficult to do that. You can do it with regular electrical stim, but it doesn't give a firm contraction. It doesn't give a eccentric, concentric contraction. So what we do is we flood the nervous system with energy. We flood it with contractions. We're doing 30,000 contractions per minute. It would take a spinal cord patient about a year in normal therapy to do 30,000 contractions that we do in 1 minute. That's the difference. So as we're flooding the blood into those areas and stimulating that area, those muscles begin to feel contractions. And when they feel contractions, that's the next step to being able to contract on their own.
Got about 60 seconds here. What's your price point? What do you charge people to come into your clinic and get started?
Well, initially right now, absolutely nothing. I mean, we'll bring them in, we'll evaluate them for all the KFAN listeners at no charge whatsoever. The price points are quite simple. We're going to have you in the clinic for 10 sessions. You're going to be seen by one of our therapists. You're going to be seen by our doctor. And then we're going to send you home with an ARP. The total cost of that is $1,500. To put that into perspective, your out-of-pocket expense for a minor surgery is 4 times that cost.
Dennis, thanks again. It's always good to see you on a Sunday morning here on The Fan. ARPWave.com or 952-431-9708. Dennis, we'll see you next Sunday.
You got it.
We'll see you later. This has been the House of Pain on KFAN.
For more on how ARP Wave Technologies can help you, log on to ARPWave.com. This has been the House of Pain on The Fan.